Mulholland Drive is considered by many to be David Lynch's greatest film, but behind it, there's a whole world of dreams and disappointments. The truth is, Mulholland Drive actually started out as a promising TV project, but when it got rejected, things took a dark turn, and one of the cast members ended up literally out on the street. Today, leaving a like isn't just recommended, it's a must. Not just because this is one of the movies you've been asking about the most in comments, but because the story behind it is intense and packed with setbacks. There was a point where no one on the team was sure if Mulholland Drive would ever make it to the screen. Here's something that may surprise you. Before it became a movie, Mulholland Drive actually started as a TV project. Because besides making a name for himself in film, David Lynch had already left a strong mark on television. In 1990, he surprised everyone with Twin Peaks, a crime series where he once again explored the dark, twisted side of the American dream. In just 2 seasons, he proved that television could also be a space for creative risks. He even thought about doing a spin-off focused on Audrey Horne, one of the characters who would move to Hollywood to chase an acting career. ABC, the network that aired the show, wasn't interested in the idea, but Lynch held on to the core premise. Lynch gave television a few more tries, but none of them really worked. On the Air only lasted 7 episodes, and his anthology series Hotel Room pretty much went unseen. After those disappointments, he even said he'd never work in television again. Still, he answered a call from Tony Krantz, an executive he'd worked with on Twin Peaks. Krantz wanted a new show for ABC. Lynch wasn't fully convinced. He felt more at home in film, where there was less pressure and more creative freedom. But Krantz kept insisting, and Lynch eventually gave in. He still liked the idea of telling a story in episodes, since it let him develop his characters more deeply and expand on a world over time. So he agreed to develop a pilot. The only thing missing now was a story, and that's when he remembered his Twin Peaks spin-off. Lynch liked the idea of a young woman trying to make it in Hollywood, but he wasn't sure about bringing Audrey from Twin Peaks back. So he started exploring a different direction. He saw the story as a small idea that could grow into something much bigger. And it all started with Rita, a woman who survives a car crash in the middle of Hollywood. Inside her purse, she's carrying $125,000 and a blue key, but she has no memory of who she is. Then another woman enters the picture, Betty, an aspiring actress who offers to help Rita recover her identity. From there, more characters and ideas began to emerge, like Adam Kesher, an ambitious film director. Using those elements, Lynch wrote the pilot script and titled it Mulholland Drive. It's one of the oldest streets in Hollywood, and to Lynch, it had a kind of strange, magical feeling. He saw it as the perfect setting to pay a personal and unusual tribute to the heart of the film industry. That's why Rita's accident happens right there. With the script finished, Lynch sat down for a meeting with Krantz and a few ABC producers. They weren't the same people from the Twin Peaks days, but they welcomed him warmly. Lynch showed them the script, along with some visual material to help them get a better sense of the tone and direction. After reviewing everything, Krantz and the other producers said, "This sounds great, let's make it happen." With a budget of $8 million, Lynch began working on the pilot for Mulholland Drive. People were already calling it the next Twin Peaks, and Lynch couldn't help but feel excited. That's why he knew he needed a cast and crew that could truly rise to the challenge. During pre-production, Lynch put together a strong technical crew, including some of his regular collaborators, like composer Angelo Badalamenti and cinematographer Peter Deming. But he knew the real key was going to be the cast. Like he often did, Lynch didn't choose well-known names. He looked for actors who matched the feeling he had in mind. That's why he usually brought back forgotten stars or introduced fresh faces. To find Rita and Betty, he didn't hold a traditional audition where actresses read lines from the script. Instead, he went through hundreds of headshots sent by casting director Johanna Ray. He didn't focus on the prettiest faces or who had the most experience. He was looking for something deeper. He wanted to see if any of them gave off the right energy for the characters. After that, he met with each one to make his final decision. For Rita, Lynch chose a photo of Laura Harring. She was born in Mexico and had started out as a model before moving on to small roles in film and television. But she kept getting typecast in stereotypical roles as the Latina, and that held her back. She didn't know what to do next with her career until one of Lynch's assistants called her. She was so nervous about the meeting that, on her way there, she crashed her car. Luckily, it was just a minor accident, and she wasn't hurt, so she kept going. When she arrived, one of Lynch's assistants greeted her. Harring apologized for being late and explained that she'd just had a car accident. The assistant, surprised, said, "You do know the script for Mulholland Drive starts with a car crash, right?" Harring got chills, but took it as a sign. And she wasn't wrong. Lynch was instantly drawn to her and gave her the part. For the role of Betty, Lynch picked a photo of British actress Naomi Watts. She's now well-known and highly respected, but back then things were completely different. She had moved to Los Angeles hoping to become a star, but only managed to land small roles in low-budget films and short-lived TV shows. By 1999, she had no agent, no health insurance, and no money. And since she was over 30, many producers had stopped calling her. All of that made her seriously think about leaving the US and giving up acting for good. That's when she got a call to meet with Lynch. He asked her to tell him about herself, and Watts spoke openly about her dreams and frustrations. They felt comfortable right away, and at one point she shared a dark story about her time in Los Angeles and ended up crying during the audition. Lynch saw something real in her. She was talented, honest, emotionally open, and exactly the kind of person he pictured for Betty. Feeling confident about his two leads, Lynch focused on the supporting roles. For the character of Adam, he chose Justin Theroux. He came from a family of writers and artists, and had started out in independent film and theater, although jobs were still hard to find. Theroux met with Lynch right after stepping off a flight. He didn't have time to change, so he showed up wearing all black, with messy hair and a sleepy look on his face. Lynch loved the way he looked, and decided to make that part of the character. Lynch was just as careful when casting smaller but crucial roles, especially the homeless figure, a character that felt both strange and haunting. He wanted the most striking face he could find, and he didn't even need to look at photos. He also didn't mind that the role wasn't written for a woman. He remembered someone he had met at a Twin Peaks party and didn't stop until he found her. Her name was Bonnie Aarons, and to his relief, she hadn't had any cosmetic work done. With the full cast and crew in place, Lynch began filming the Mulholland Drive pilot. Talk of it becoming the next Twin Peaks was louder than ever, but not even Lynch, with all his imagination, could have predicted what was about to happen. Production on Mulholland Drive took place in Los Angeles between February and March of 1999, and from the start, it had Lynch's signature all over it. As he often did, the director kept working out the story in his head, but didn't share many details with the cast. Watts, Harring, and Theroux were often left in the dark, unsure of their characters or what the scenes really meant. At first, it was confusing. It felt like acting in the dark, but it was David Lynch, and they trusted him. On top of that, they all knew this project might be their big chance to finally launch their careers. Despite his usual working style and the dark tone of the pilot, Lynch made sure the atmosphere on set was warm and friendly. He grew fond of the cast and felt reassured that his instincts when choosing them had been right. Watts and Harring had great chemistry and quickly became friends, and Theroux grew more and more intrigued by the mysterious nature of the story. While he gave close attention to the leads, Lynch became especially focused on the scene where the homeless figure appears behind a dumpster to scare a man. Just minutes before shooting, Aarons, already in full makeup, showed Lynch a few creepy facial expressions. He wasn't fully convinced and stepped away to speak with someone from the crew. At that moment, he noticed Aarons staring at him with a dreamy, almost entranced look. He turned to her and said, "That's it, Bonnie, the eyes." So, when they filmed the scene, Aarons kept her eyes locked on the director to hold on to that exact effect. What Lynch was most excited about during the production was that ABC wasn't getting involved. They seemed to be giving him full creative freedom, or at least that's what he thought. After a smooth and uneventful shoot, the Mulholland Drive pilot moved into post-production. Soon Lynch had an early cut ready to show the producers at ABC, and that's when things started to get complicated. ABC scheduled the pilot screening for 6 a.m. and played it on a regular TV. Lynch was uncomfortable right away. He didn't think that was the right setting for anyone to truly appreciate his work. He was horrified when one of the top network executives, whose identity has never been revealed, watched the entire thing while standing several feet from the screen, sipping coffee. As soon as it ended, he said, "It's so boring." The rest of the group felt the same. They thought it was too dark and hard to follow. That reaction came mostly from the open ending Lynch had chosen. One of them asked how the story was supposed to continue. Lynch answered, "You'll have to convince me to tell you." It was his way of inviting them to greenlight the series. But the only thing Lynch got back was a stack of notes full of complaints about the slow pace, the lighting being too dark, and the story not following a clear structure. They also criticized the level of violence. The Columbine massacre had happened just recently, and the country was still on edge. Because of that, Hollywood studios had started cutting back on anything too intense or graphic. To get the pilot reconsidered, Lynch would have had to give in to ABC's demands. He agreed that the pacing needed some work, but he refused to let a group of office workers control his vision. He explained this to Krantz, his only supporter at the network, but even he couldn't help this time. With no real backing left, the Mulholland Drive pilot was officially scrapped. Lynch was heartbroken. To him, Mulholland Drive was filled with ideas he truly cared about, trapped inside something that no longer had a future. What hurt even more was having to share the news with the cast. Harring thought that, without the show, she'd be stuck doing small roles and the occasional modeling job. Theroux was frustrated with ABC's narrow mindset and spoke out against the way pilots were chosen. Naomi Watts went as far as packing her bags, ready to leave Hollywood and give up acting for good. It seemed like Mulholland Drive had hit a dead end until a surprise offer came out of nowhere. A few days after the pilot was turned down, Lynch got a visit from Pierre Edelman, a French producer and friend who had worked with him on The Straight Story. Lynch opened up and told him all about the rough experience with ABC. After a brief pause, Edelman asked if he would ever think about turning Mulholland Drive into a movie. Lynch went quiet. He had only ever pictured Mulholland Drive as a TV series, but the idea of bringing it back was stronger than he expected. Without wasting time, Edelman put Lynch in touch with Alain Sarda, a French producer known for working on indie and art house films. Sarda loved the idea behind Mulholland Drive and promised to find support to turn it into a movie. He reached out to the team at Studio Canal, a French company that was much more open than ABC. The talks went on for months, and Lynch started to think the project would remain just a forgotten TV pilot. But a year later, Sarda closed a deal with Studio Canal. The company agreed to invest $7 million to shoot new scenes and expand the second and third acts. Lynch felt hopeful again, but realized he didn't know how to turn the pilot into a full-length movie. That same night, he sat down to think, and the ideas, as he later put it, came to him like pearls on a string. He came up with new scenes and bolder ideas, things that never would have made it onto American TV. For the first time, he felt like the project was becoming what it was always meant to be. All he had to do was write it down. Now, the chance to turn Mulholland Drive into a real film was finally within reach. Lynch was ready. Now he just needed to see if the original cast and crew were still around. Lynch was able to bring back Badalamenti, Deming, and the rest of the original crew. But he wasn't sure if the actors could return. It had been more than a year since he'd last spoken to them. And since they weren't famous, there was a good chance they had taken other jobs. If that happened, he'd have to do the casting all over again, which would make things a lot more complicated. Expecting bad news, Lynch started calling each member of the cast. But when they picked up, all he heard were excited screams. His timing couldn't have been better. Harring was out of work. Watts had just bought a ticket to fly back to Australia. Theroux was thinking about switching to screenwriting, and Aarons was just trying to make ends meet. The new scenes for Mulholland Drive were filmed between November and December of 2000, once again in Los Angeles. Lynch set out to expand the story in even more surprising directions, pushing the line between reality and dreams even further. This is where he added the storyline in which Betty and Rita become Diane Selwyn and Camilla Rhodes, and the true nature of their relationship is revealed. These new scenes gave a whole new meaning to many parts of the original pilot. Some moments in Mulholland Drive also highlight its connection to the history of Los Angeles. One example is the scene where Adam Kesher hits a producer's car with a golf club. That moment was based on a real incident, when Jack Nicholson was arrested for smashing a car's windshield, because according to him, it was blocking traffic. Watts and Harring understood that the new scenes were more daring than the ones in the pilot, and they worked hard to meet Lynch's expectations. Still, both of them were concerned about the intimate scene between Diane and Camilla. The script made it clear that it wasn't meant to be vulgar. It was there to show the bond between the characters, but they still had their doubts. Once again, they chose to trust the director. They had put their careers in his hands, and he didn't let them down. He made sure they felt comfortable on set and gave the scene a thoughtful, respectful tone. Once the new scenes were wrapped, Lynch jumped into post-production. Neither Sarda nor anyone at Studio Canal questioned his decisions. He had more creative freedom than at almost any other point in his career. Mulholland Drive had grown into a full-length film, and it was finally ready to be shown to the public. Lynch had a loyal following, but he also knew this was his strangest project yet. How would people respond? Mulholland Drive premiered on May 16, 2001, at the Cannes Film Festival. Lynch and the lead actors arrived feeling nervous. The director was still wondering if the story would actually work as a full-length movie. Watts had already been evicted from her apartment in California because she couldn't pay the rent, but her friend Nicole Kidman convinced her to stay in the country until the film was released. At the same time, Harring and Theroux were just hoping the movie would help them get more acting work. But all those doubts disappeared once the first reviews came in. Critics praised the film as a masterpiece, and some even said it was Lynch's best work. He ended up winning the Best Director award, which he shared with Joel Cohen for The Man Who Wasn't There. The success of Mulholland Drive set the stage for its U.S. theatrical release on October 12, 2001. Because it was originally shot for television and had a different format than most films, Lynch wrote a personal letter to theaters with instructions on how to show it without cutting off parts of the frame. He also added a note asking them to raise the volume by 3 decibels during the screening. The film wasn't a box office hit at first, but it still made $20 million. And that didn't stop the glowing reviews or the buzz from Lynch's fans. People were amazed by the acting, the atmosphere, the hidden symbols, and the full Lynch experience, pushed to the limit. The winning streak continued through award season, with Lynch receiving an Oscar nomination for Best Director. After coming so close to being shut down, Mulholland Drive went on to surprise the world and inspire endless theories and interpretations. And its impact didn't stop there. Mulholland Drive changed the lives of its cast for good. Naomi Watts started landing bigger roles and finally became the star she had always dreamed of. Laura Harring didn't reach that level of fame, but she gained more recognition as an actress and never stopped working. Justin Theroux is now a respected actor and writer in Hollywood. Bonnie Aarons later returned as another haunting figure in The Nun. As for Lynch, the mind behind it all, he slowly stepped away from filmmaking. One of his last major projects was Twin Peaks: The Return, the 3rd season of his iconic series. He passed away on January 15, 2025, and one of the first works people brought up to honor him was Mulholland Drive. It was clear the film had left a real mark on pop culture. David Lynch lives on, just like the endless questions the film still leaves behind. Did Diane die at the beginning of the story? Is everything taking place in some kind of purgatory, where the characters keep repeating their mistakes? Is it all part of a time loop? If Lynch ever had the answers, he took them with him to wherever he is now. But you're invited to share your own theories in the comments.